What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Pillars Unpacked. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. Really excited about this one. We're going to be covering St. Patrick's Cathedral in Charlotte. Charlotte is my hometown and where I live, so very excited to cover this one. St. Patrick's, obviously, he's synonymous with St. Patrick's Day, which is very important to Ireland and the history of Ireland. He's the patron saint of this church, obviously. Also famously, St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, which is world famous at this point. But he was, considered the main missionary to the country of Ireland way back in the day, and there's a deep history there. But this church is named after him, and he's the patron saint, so there's a lot of kind of Irish or Celtic influences to it. The church started being constructed in 1938, and it was finished in 1939, and it was immediately consecrated right after that. It wasn't until 1972 when the Diocese of Charlotte was actually created, and that was, I believe, Pope Paul VI, who created the Diocese of Charlotte. Obviously, Charlotte, a very fast-growing metropolitan area, and so to kind of represent that and to accommodate for the growing population in the area, the diocese was established, and there's now there's two in the state of North Carolina. So Charlotte is one, and Raleigh is the other, which is kind of an older one, but Charlotte was established to kind of balance out that representation of population. So the church itself is it's not far from uptown Charlotte. It's located in the Dilworth neighborhood, which is just a beautiful, really cool and quiet neighborhood with some really old and nice houses, and there's kind of massive trees that line the streets, and then all of a sudden the church is just there. So it has a very small neighborhood feel to it, which I definitely always like. And as mentioned, because this is a cathedral, it's the seat of the bishop of the Diocese of Charlotte, and then this specific diocese sits in the greater Archdiocese of Atlanta. So that's just a little bit of a background and a quick history on it. So let's go check out the church, and then stay tuned after for some more info and more insight. right, so I hope you guys enjoyed getting to see this church. Definitely enjoyed getting to see it. Before making this video, I had actually never been to or seen the church, which is crazy because I've lived here all my life. So, but it was kind of cool to have something new to see. And like I mentioned at the top of the video, I love the neighborhood feel. It literally is like you're driving down the street of this neighborhood or you're walking down, and then all of a sudden like the church is just there. So hopefully you kind of can get a feel for that. I tried to give some kind of like perspective shots from further down the street and across the street so that you can kind of get a feel for it. There's also there's a Catholic school that's located, like it's literally attached almost to the administrative building that's like right behind the cathedral. And then there's a rectory for some of the church staff, which you can see it in the video, but it's basically right next to it, and they all kind of are on the same grounds. So I think that's pretty cool that there's kind of all that happening there that's administered by the parish. Being honest, I thought that the cathedral was a lot smaller than I was imagining, especially just for how big of a city Charlotte is, and with this being located right near Uptown, I mean, it's a pretty big population hub, especially with a lot of suburbs of Charlotte not very far from this location. And I actually did learn when I was kind of doing some research on it, the diocese announced in 2024 that they are actually going to be building a new cathedral building to replace this one. And I think that makes sense because it is very nice and there's a lot of really cool features to it, but I definitely think a bigger space makes sense, just kind of given the crazy population growth. I also really like, just mentioning also on the exterior, that Celtic cross that kind of is just like on kind of like the rolling lawn outside of the building itself. I like how that kind of overlooked the space in general. That was added, I believe, in the 70s as part of a renovation to the building. So I like that feature, and again, it kind of has that like Irish heritage and obviously connection to the history there with St. Patrick. Not far from the rectory, there was that kind of like shrine dedicated to Mary. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I like that it kind of was just like in its own little space, like its own little courtyard. And I like that people can kind of just go over there. It's like a quiet spot for contemplation or prayer, meditation. And I like that it's kind of removed from the actual church space itself. And it's right down the walkway from the rectory. So if, church staff was there, it would be very convenient for them to access as well. So I thought that was cool. And I didn't know that was going to be there, so kind of just stumbled upon it. The interior of the church, even though it was smaller than I thought it was still very interesting. I really, really liked the panels on the ceiling. There's crowns and crosses, and then I believe it was wheat and grapes. So it's the wheat and the grapes symbolizing the Eucharist, obviously the cross symbolizing the crucifixion of Jesus, and then the crown referencing Charlotte being referred to as the Queen City, because Charlotte is named after Queen Charlotte of the Duchy of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, and she was the wife of Britain's King George III, who was, famously or infamously the head of the British crown during the American War for Independence. So I think that's a pretty cool nod to the history of Charlotte and us being named after her. So I really, really like that, because this is obviously like meant to be as the cathedral of the diocese, it's meant to kind of represent the city at large. So I think that's a really cool nod to the history of the city. And there were also there were two of the side chapels kind of at the end of the transept. The church, because I mentioned it's smaller, it just doesn't have that kind of just like as broad of a feel to it. So the transept, the ends of it felt like very truncated and like very, very close to the altar space itself. So just something worth noting there. The stained glass windows I liked and I thought were a highlight. I liked the color that it added to the interior, and some famous scenes that it was depicting. So tried to show, like, there's certain ones like, Jesus being presented at the temple, Jesus performing miracles and healings and other things like that. So tried to definitely show those to get a feel for it. And then I also liked the Stations of the Cross, just kind of like that, the little like paneling, but like a 3D sculpture thing, if you will, that kind of just like, it added a little bit of pop to them. I really enjoyed seeing that as well, so also tried to focus on that. So hope you guys enjoyed getting to see this. I thought it was a lot of fun getting to explore it. It's cool that this is, it's a major church building and has some cool history, and it's not very far from where I live and where I grew up. So definitely enjoyed it. So stay tuned. I was actually able to visit Boston recently and have a couple of churches that will be featured on the channel from there. So those will be featured in the coming weeks. So definitely stay tuned for that. And again, thanks so much for watching. And as always, keep looking up.